Everybody, this is John for No BS Wrestling with our second ever video on the channel. Breakdown of NXT Takeover Portland on February 16th of 2020. As a friendly reminder, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below. First up, match of the night was Dominik Dijakovic versus Keith Lee for the NXT North American title. This was a true battle of the big hosses with a lot of athleticism, including this over-the-top tope that Mr. Dijakovic does. That's a 6'7", 270-pound man flying over a rope like he doesn't care. This one was won by Keith Lee, hitting the Supernova jackhammer to finish up the match, roughly about 20 minutes in. But if you like to see just two big men going at it without, the old WWE stereotype of slow and plodding, these guys were athletic, powerful, lots of contests of strength, great storytelling between the two wrestlers. They've had 5 matches. They've all been terrific. They've had Mario Ronaldo also referred to several matches they had outside of NXT, so obviously these guys seem to have a history. But this was an amazing match of two big hosses, and in my mind might have been the match of the night on a card that featured really no weak matches. But let's get into the next match with Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox. Second match of the night saw Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai square off in a street fight, which was about payback for Tegan Nox on Dakota Kai. Dakota Kai obviously knocking out Tegan Nox out of action during the War Games pay-per-view, deliberately injuring her knee. Dakota Kai also notably having knee issues, hence why they're both wearing knee braces. As Tegan Nox was making her way out, Dakota Kai jumped her. Their fight started out as a brawl. They definitely took advantage of the stipulations. There was trash cans, there was table spots, there was even, I think, a cricket bat was taken out at some point. They definitely played up the stipulation, and that's the one thing I will give NXT huge props for, is each match had a very different feel to it. This one definitely took advantage of the street fight rules going on. There was a lot of spot fests, people having their heads dropped on trash cans, a lot of physical violence. Tegan Nox eventually started to get the edge in the match, late in the match, when she went to put Miss Kai through a table by jumping through it. A debuting Raquel Gonzalez came out and pushed Tegan Nox off into the table itself. However, in kind of a rough spot, the table did not break, and Tegan bounced off of it, kind of looked like she got knocked out. And then Dakota Kai, kind of looking stunned, not sure what was going on, slid the table out of the way and pinned Tegan Nox 1, 2, 3 for the win. An interesting bit of storytelling. It did look like Dakota Kai was not sure why Raquel Gonzalez was out there. It'll be interesting to see how NXT plays this off on TV over the next couple of weeks, whether this was a pre-planned thing with Raquel and Tegan, not Raquel and Tegan, Raquel and Dakota Kai, or was this kind of an intervention in which Raquel decided she didn't like Tegan for some reason and decided to align herself with Dakota Kai? So, very good bit of storytelling, very good use of the stipulations in this match. Also, another excellent match on the card. This was certainly one of the matches that had the least behind it, other than the awesome story these ladies were telling, and I think they both knocked this match out of the park. Third match of the night was Finn Balor versus Johnny Gargano for Battle for who is the top dog in NXT. Balor feeling disrespected that little boys, quote-unquote, like Johnny Gargano came over and took over the NXT that he helped build. So this was very much a battle of pride, who's number one on the brand, etc. And as expected, this was an excellent wrestling match between both men. Both men are very skilled in the ring, very good with various different styles, strikes, submissions. There was the Gargano escape. Balor hit the coup de grace. Johnny hit slingshot DDTs. The final sequence came down to Johnny drop kicking Finn into the barrier, and then Finn turning it around, dropping Johnny on the announce table, shotgun kicking him into the barrier from there, rolling him into the ring, hitting the coup de grace, and then hitting the 1916 DDT, also using his little Bullet Club signal that he used when he was over in the Bullet Club in Japan. And I think this was a much-needed win for Balor here. He definitely needed to prove that he was the top dog, and he needed to get a measure of revenge against Gargano. Gargano obviously cost him his title shot against Adam Cole. So, a measure of revenge here for Balor, proving he is a top star on the NXT brand after some years of floundering on the main roster after winning the inaugural Universal title and getting injured that night. And obviously this also set up events for later in the night, which we'll get into when we talk about the main event. Overall, a very good match, but I still think the Keith Lee versus Dijakovic match was a little bit better in terms of variance, but this one was also very good in its storytelling. Fourth match of the night was the NXT Women's title match between Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. Both women put on a very terrific show, with Bianca showing off her athleticism and strength, while Rhea showing her resiliency at taking some strikes and giving back as good as she got. Match finished in a attempted superplex that ended up with Rhea pulling Bianca's hand down through her legs, bouncing her head off the turnbuckle, and then setting up the riptide from the top rope. The match was pretty good, but kind of a foregone conclusion, unfortunately, with the way they set up the storytelling with Charlotte Flair. Bianca put on a very good showing, but much like against Shayna Baszler, she kind of fell short here. I do wonder how many more times WWE can go this well with Bianca being the top contender, but not pulling a trigger on winning the title, although I do think it's way too early in Rhea Ripley's reign to rip the title from her. There was some after-match shenanigans with Charlotte coming out, attacking Rhea Ripley from behind, and then saying, well, she thought about it, she's going to see her at WrestleMania. And then, for good measure, she hit the bow to the Queen on Rhea as she was kind of recovering from the initial blow to the back of the head. And for good measure, she also threw Bianca into the stairs, kind of calling back to the spot on NXT TV where both Rhea and Bianca had dropped Charlotte when she came to their house. So, very solid match overall, but I think this was more setting up the match for WrestleMania between Rhea Ripley and Charlotte than it was about putting over Bianca Belair as nothing more than a credible threat, but not necessarily someone who could take the championship from Rhea Ripley at this point. So, props to both women. This was an excellent match. Different storytelling in this one. There was a lot more strikes and such, a lot of athleticism on show. A little bit different than, the slugfest between Lee and Dijakovic, different things between Balor and Gargano. Once again, I think this was a very good match. Did not disappoint at all. And once again, huge props to NXT for each match taking on a different dynamic. The fifth match was the tag team title match between the Broserweights, Pete Dunne and Matt Riddle, versus the Undisputed Era's Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. The match got off to a slow start with Matt Riddle trying to get over some chant about Bobby Fish's name, complete with little graphics and everything else. But after that, the Undisputed Era went out and started brawling with the Broserweights, and the match kind of got off to a fast start from there. Bunch of usual tag team chemistry. Both teams kind of took their turns being in control of the match. The final of the match involved the Broserweights super kicking O'Reilly, and then a combination of the Bro to Sleep and Pete Dunne kicking Fish in the head. So he took a go to sleep knee and kick from Pete Dunne. 1, 2, 3. New tag team champions. Very good match back and forth. If you like watching any type of tag team chemistry matches, The dynamic of what Matt Riddle brings to the thing, just running around, hitting all these kind of crazy moves, and then Pete Dunne with his a little bit more of a deliberate style with the joint manipulations and other things. There was even a spot where there was joint ankle locks, which is kind of close to what they're setting up here. There was a few situations where both teams were trying to play defense from submissions. So this was a very, very fun tag team match, and did kind of set up the storyline of Undisputed Era's last title holder going into the night with Ciampa versus Cole. The final match of the evening was the NXT title match between Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa, the uncrowned champion who lost his title due to injury. This match got off to a very fast start, with Ciampa taking control fairly early on. Cole kind of had to weather the early storm until he was able to hit a kind of a wicked spot on the announce table. Kind of looked like it bounced Ciampa's head off of, causing a whiplash effect with a surgically repaired neck. And then they traded back and forth. A lot of the similar things you saw out of the Gargano and Finn Balor matchups. A lot of traded attempted finishers. Basically, Cole focused on Ciampa's neck, and Ciampa just was the resilient former champion. Kicked out of everything, even several attempts at the last shot. Actually took a last shot and kicked out. This match went back and forth for quite a while, with both guys hitting each and everything they could throw at each other. Finally, about 25-30 minutes in, Roderick Strong suddenly appears out of nowhere, distracting the referee, while Riley and Fish do a double team on Ciampa, throw him back into the ring. He kicks out of that. Then there's another rough bump spot. Ciampa basically takes down the entire Undisputed Era himself, gets Cole back into the ring, hits the fairy tale ending. Unfortunately, the ref is still out on the floor. The audience counts to like 10. Ciampa's looking around, realizing that Cole obviously isn't going to get up anytime soon, but there's no referee. Sees the gold belt, and that's when they set up the finish. The finish with Johnny Gargano coming out of nowhere, grabbing the title belt from Ciampa before he could use it. Couple seconds later, Gargano turns heel and absolutely clocks Ciampa with the title belt. The ref at that point stirs back in, and Cole covers Ciampa for the 1, 2, 3. So, in one stroke, they managed to turn a beloved babyface heel against his former partner, who they obviously have a huge unfinished story between them. They keep the title on Cole, keeping the Undisputed Era strong, and other than not really showing who will be the top title contender for Cole going forward, they set up an awesome storyline between Ciampa and Gargano, which never got a chance to finish when Ciampa got hurt with his neck injury while he was still the champion. And they still have Balor and Undisputed Era maintaining some of their prestige despite losing 2 of the 3 titles they've held in the last several months. So, very interesting ending. That's the second title match in a row where Balor had both against Balor and against Ciampa, where Cole won with outside interference that wasn't even the Undisputed Era. So in some ways they're kind of cheapening his reign, but at the same time he is kind of the big bad that is set up down the end. And they do get set up another main event rivalry between the former DIY partners. Overall, this was an excellent pay-per-view, as kind of to be expected with the Triple H brand. WWE as a whole on the main roster, I think, could learn from this storytelling that they do down in NXT. None of the matches were like 5-star out of this world matches, but they were all very solid, very entertaining matches. Some people complained some of the matches were overbooked, this, that, or the other thing. As a pure wrestling fan, I was entertained. I definitely enjoyed each and every one of the matches. Even the matches that I wasn't really looking forward to, like the Tegan Nox versus Dakota Kai matchup, ended up being a very nice surprise. So overall, I would say this NXT was excellent, like most of them are, and as several people have said, this might have been the pay-per-view of the year, and we're still very early in the year. but it's definitely going to be the measuring stick by which all other WWE pay-per-views are going to be measured this year. As a friendly reminder, if you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below. Hopefully later this week we will have a video up on kind of breaking down why so many people thought the 2020 Royal Rumble main event was so good in relation to some of the previous years. We're probably going to be looking back at least the next previous 5, 19, 18, 17, 16, maybe even 15, the wonderful Roman Reigns debacle. But that's what's coming up on the channel. Hope to see you here for the next video.